In today's episode of the Story of Animals, we're buzzing into the fascinating world of bees. These tiny, winged wonders work tirelessly to pollinate flowers, sustain ecosystems, and make that delicious honey we love. But when we think of bees, one common belief always comes to mind. Bees die after they sting. But is that really true? Well, the answer is yes and no. Stick around as we uncover the sting of the matter and answer the ultimate question: do bees die after stinging? Before we dive into whether bees meet their doom after a sting, let's first ask, why do bees sting at all? Are they tiny warriors on a mission to attack anything that crosses their path? Absolutely not. Bees are actually quite peaceful. They're more interested in collecting nectar, pollinating flowers, and keeping their colonies running smoothly. However, when they sense a threat to their hive or their queen, bees switch to defense mode. Worker bees, in particular, take their jobs as protectors very seriously. If an intruder gets too close, they're ready to sting. And this is where things get interesting. To understand why a bee might die after stinging, we need to look at the stinger itself. Honeybees, which are the most famous bee species, have barbed stingers. Imagine a tiny harpoon. Once it pierces the skin, it hooks in and doesn't let go easily. When a honeybee stings a mammal or human, the barbs in its stinger get lodged in the skin. As the bee tries to pull away, the stinger stays behind. But so does a part of the bee's abdomen, including muscles, nerves, and digestive tissue. It's a tragic act of self-sacrifice that ensures venom is delivered effectively, but the bee pays the ultimate price. Here's where things get a little more complicated. While honeybees do indeed die after stinging mammals or thick-skinned animals, not all bees share the same fate. Bumblebees, for example, have smooth stingers. This means they can sting multiple times without losing their stinger or their lives. Bumblebees can defend themselves repeatedly without any consequence to their own survival. Carpenter bees and other solitary bees also have smooth stingers and can sting more than once. However, they're far less aggressive and generally prefer to avoid stinging unless absolutely necessary. Queen bees are another exception. While queen bees have smooth stingers that allow them to sting multiple times, they typically reserve their stings for rival queens during hive conflicts, not to defend the hive against predators. So, why do honeybees specifically have barbed stingers that lead to their doom? It's all about evolution and survival. Honeybees live in densely populated colonies with thousands of individuals. Their survival strategy relies on the collective strength of the hive rather than individual bees. When a honeybee stings a large predator, like a bear or even a human, it sacrifices itself for the greater good. While one bee may die, the venom delivered by the stinger sends a warning signal to the rest of the colony, triggering an aggressive defensive response. A swarm of bees following one sacrificial sting is often enough to convince any predator to retreat. Interestingly, honeybees' barbed stingers work best against thick-skinned invaders. When they sting other insects, their stinger doesn't get lodged, allowing them to sting multiple times without dying. Here's another fascinating detail. When a honeybee stings, the detached stinger continues to pump venom into the target for several seconds after the bee is gone. The venom contains melittin, a compound that causes pain, swelling, and inflammation. So, even after the bee sacrifices itself, its sting continues to work, ensuring that the threat is neutralized. For the honeybee, however, losing its stinger is fatal. Without the essential organs that are torn away during the sting, the bee dies within minutes. Now, here's a philosophical twist. Do honeybees know they're sacrificing themselves when they sting? While it's a fascinating question, the answer is probably no. Bees operate on instinct, not conscious thought. Their actions are driven by evolutionary programming, ensuring the survival of their colony. So, while their sting might be a one-way ticket to bee heaven, they're not aware of the cost. Despite the risks that come with defending their hives, honeybees and other pollinators are essential to the health of our planet. They pollinate about 75% of the world's flowering plants and 35% of our food crops. Without bees, the world would look very different, and not in a good way. So, the next time you see a bee buzzing by, remember that these tiny creatures are doing far more for the world than we often give them credit for. And if you happen to get stung, well, at least now you know the incredible story behind that tiny, barbed stinger. Now, it's time to see how much you've learned from today's episode. We've got 3 fun trivia questions coming up. Ready? Let's start. Question 1. Which type of bee can sting multiple times without dying? The correct answer is B, bumblebee. Bumblebees have smooth stingers, allowing them to sting multiple times without suffering the same fate as honeybees. Let's try another question. Question 2. Why do honeybees die after stinging? The correct answer is A. Their stinger gets stuck and tears their abdomen. The barbed stinger gets lodged in the skin, resulting in a fatal tear when the bee tries to fly away. Let's move on to the last question for this episode. Question 3. What is the primary reason bees sting? The correct answer is B, to defend the hive. Bees sting primarily as a defense mechanism to protect their colony from perceived threats. Great job if you got all 3 questions correct. If you missed any, don't worry. You've just learned some fascinating facts about these buzzing little heroes. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution.